Welcome to Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into, well, perhaps the most aggressively asserted single-source document we've ever analyzed here. We're deep diving into a text titled The Corona Ritual, Rehearsal for the Great Reset.
That's right. And just to be clear up front, this isn't us talking about public health policy in the usual sense.
No, not at all.
It's really an intellectual exercise. We're looking into a very specific and, let's say, deeply complex worldview presented in this text.
Okay.
The text itself, it asserts that the COVID-19 pandemic wasn't, some random health crisis.
Right.
But rather something meticulously planned, highly symbolic, a ritualistic event orchestrated by a shadowy group.
So our mission here, yours and mine, is really just to clearly synthesize and structure those extraordinary claims from this specific text.
Exactly. We're following the rabbit hole, but only as it's presented by these authors.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The foundational claim right off the bat is that the pandemic was the most ambitious and brutal mini reset in history. And they pin the entire operation, the whole thing, on a highly secretive entity they actually name the O.k Club.
Yeah, they don't waste any time establishing the alleged scale and intent.
Yeah.
According to this source, this fundamentally wasn't a medical event in the way most people understand it.
Okay, so what was it, according to them?
It was defined in, three core ways. First, a live-fire war game.
Right.
Second, a global stress test. And third, maybe the most dramatic framing, a ritualistic culling.
A ritualistic culling. Wow. That phrasing immediately sets up a specific power dynamic, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, between the powerful players, whoever they are, and the global population.
Which the text actually calls the pawns.
That's the term, yes. And the source goes further. It claims the orchestrators, who they call the Ringmasters, didn't even really try to hide their identity.
How so?
They assert the signature was left right there in the name of the virus itself.
This is the part they call the Cypher in the name.
Exactly. They take the name Corona.
Which means crown in Latin.
Precisely. So the text asserts, very directly, that the pathogen was literally the crown's virus.
Okay.
The claim is that this was a deliberate act of war, perpetrated by what they term the Crown Corporation,
Ringmaster,
acting against their subjects, the pawns, who are housed in what the authors quite bluntly call the global zoo penitentiary.
A zoo penitentiary. So the name itself is the brand, the ownership mark from the start.
That's the core assertion, symbolically branded and owned from the very beginning.
Okay, so if the Crown owned the event, that structural claim leads directly into the next part of their argument.
Which is?
That the response to the virus, how it was managed, that was the true weapon.
Mm-hmm.
They label the whole 2 years basically a global pantomime of fear and control.
Right. So if you follow their logic, the initial pathogen, the virus itself, was maybe just the catalyst.
The spark, yeah.
The justification needed to implement the real mechanisms of control.
Which raises the question, what specific mechanisms are they pointing to, and what was the alleged purpose behind them?
The text seems to focus pretty intensely on two main psychological mechanisms.
Okay, the first one seems obvious. The lockdowns.
Yes. And according to this text, these lockdowns were explicitly not about public safety. That wasn't the primary goal.
So what was it then?
It was about reinforcing the status of the pawns.
As prisoners in the penitentiary.
Exactly. Conditioning the population to accept, digital boundaries, government restrictions on movement, almost like a practice run.
A practice run for potentially permanent systems of control later on.
That's the implication. But then there's the second mechanism, which the text presents as even more intense,
which is
the cruelty of isolation. Here, the argument shifts a bit. It moves from just physical control to defining a kind of ritualistic act.
Designed to inflict psychological damage.
Precisely. This is where the narrative takes on a sort of occult ritual flavor, almost.
How so?
The text details the forced isolation, specifically highlighting the policies that required the sick, the elderly, to die alone.
Separated from family, from loved ones. Yeah, that was incredibly difficult for so many.
And the authors here assert this isolation wasn't just some unfortunate side effect of managing a crisis.
They claim it was deliberate.
Deliberate, yes.
And the purpose of making it deliberately cruel, according to this source.
Well, they claim it was intended to achieve three specific ritual outcomes.
Okay, what are they?
First, to shatter the bonds of family, disrupt the main unit of potential resistance.
Right, makes sense in their logic.
Second, to maximize psychological torment.
Okay.
And third, and this is where the language gets, quite heavy, to harvest the energy of sorrow.
Wait, hang on. Harvest the energy of sorrow? How does the document explain the mechanism for that? Is that meant physically or just symbolically?
It seems to be framed as both. The source suggests the isolation policy created this state of, like, maximum unfocused despair across the population.
Okay.
And the physical act of forcing people apart enables the ritualistic collection, somehow, of that energy. The psychological damage, they maintain, was the primary goal.
Proving that these ringmasters prioritize control and ritual over actual life preservation.
That's the core of their argument for that phase, yeah.
Okay, so here's where the text apparently presents what it sees as its ultimate proof. The kind of smoking gun. We call it the contradiction.
Yes, the authors argued that the whole narrative, the whole justification, just collapsed with the sudden, well, jarring reversal of public health rules later on.
You mean the shift from maximum isolation, strict distancing, total lockdown?
Exactly, to suddenly changing policies like ordering people, even infected people, back to work, especially in critical sectors.
Right, I remember that whiplash. From stay home, save lives to keep the economy moving.
And that dramatic shift, that's what the text interprets as the final confession.
The confession being?
That health was never really the central objective. They argued this pivot, this reversal, was the moment the mask slipped.
Revealing the true purpose.
Which they claim was a global stress test.
Right.
This whole period, they say, was used to gather just immense amounts of data.
Data on what?
On compliance.
Yeah.
On resistance. On the breaking points of the global population.
Ah, I see. So vital data fed into their models, helping them prepare for what they think is the real reset still to come.
Exactly. A massive data collection exercise disguised as an emergency public health measure. That's the claim.
Okay, that structural proof point then leads us right into the next claimed mechanism of this whole ritual.
Which takes us to the medical response itself.
Right. The authors assert that the pharmaceutical industry delivered the actual intended weapon.
The real payload.
They call it the profane payload.
Yeah, if the virus was just the spark, according to this source, the medical countermeasure was the true fire.
Okay.
The text is adamant that the ultimate payload of the whole ritual wasn't the disease.
But the cure. Or what was presented as the cure.
Exactly. Delivered at massive scale by the big pharma companies.
And the document doesn't see these companies acting independently.
No, not at all. It explicitly identifies Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson.
The main players we all know.
As the four great regiments in this war.
Mm-hmm.
Like military units.
Moving in lockstep under some kind of central command.
That's the assertion.
And what exactly were these regiments delivering? The text is very specific that these weren't, in their view, traditional vaccines.
No. It states very clearly they were untested genetic therapies.
Okay.
And labels them collectively as the true poison of the game. With game in all caps, interestingly.
Right, and the text argues these therapies fundamentally alter human biology, rather than just providing standard immunity.
That's a major part of their argument, yes.
Yeah.
That distinction is crucial to their narrative.
So, if this therapy was the payload, the source must claim there's an active weapon within it, right?
Right.
What do they identify as the mechanism?
It singles out one component we heard a lot about, the spike protein. According to this text, the spike protein expression that results from the therapy is the active weapon within the payload.
And how do they describe it?
They use that ritualistic language again. They call it a profane cipher, like a biological spike.
Yep.
Designed specifically, they claim, to disrupt the harmony of the human vessel.
Disrupt the harmony, and they believe this disruption was deliberately designed to achieve one specific outcome.
Yes. An outcome they label, very starkly, the cull.
The cull, as in reducing the population.
That is explicitly the text's claimed intended consequence. The authors directly connect the reported worldwide deaths and disabilities that emerged post-rollout.
Things like myocarditis, pericarditis.
Exactly. Inflammation of the heart, also thrombosis, blood clotting issues, and even, they claim, terrifying neurodegenerative problems like prion diseases.
Prion diseases, like mad cow.
Yes, and the text is clear. The assertion is that these were not unfortunate, unexpected side effects.
They were the plan all along.
Correct. The intended mechanism for the cleansing of the herd, as they put it.
And they draw a link to mad cow disease specifically.
They do. They call the rise of prion diseases, in this context, a profane echo of mad cow disease.
Reinforcing their idea that this is like a repeatable playbook, a signature culling operation run by the same shadowy group over time.
That seems to be exactly the connection they're making. History repeating, but with new tools.
Okay, so if the crown was the cipher in the name, and the spike was the biological cipher, the text then brings in one final piece of alleged evidence.
Something tangible.
Yes, a physical proof point they call the signature in stone.
Right. This is the supposed confession on the wall.
A secret hidden in plain sight?
Kind of, yeah. Left by the Ringmasters. The authors make a very specific claim about the location of the London COVID Memorial Wall.
What's the claim?
They assert it's built on the exact same wall in Westminster as the memorial that's dedicated to the UK victims of CJD Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Which is the human form of mad cow disease.
Precise.
Wow. So that specific placement, putting the memorials for two distinct epidemics, which the text connects as related culling operations side by side, that's presented as the final proof.
Yes. Their interpretation ties the whole alleged ritual together. This physical co-location is viewed as the OK Club signing their work.
Like an artist's signature.
That's the analogy, yes. The text claims this placement is a secret, public declaration of their successful handiwork.
Memorializing two of their most successful culling operations right next to each other.
For the authors of this text, it is the definitive confession. Visible, they'd say, for anyone who can read the symbolic language.
That is... Well, it's a remarkable synthesis of claims, isn't it? It connects linguistics, psychology, big pharma, virology, and even physical geography.
It's an incredibly intricate narrative they've constructed.
So if we connect this all back to the bigger picture, the source material argues that this whole thing, the corona ritual, with all these elements, was essentially the final dress rehearsal.
That's the summation, yes. The conclusion drawn in the document, that the operation successfully tested the control systems,
The compliance data.
achieved the desired psychological torment, conducted an initial culling of the pawn population.
And gathered all that behavioral data they needed.
Exactly. The authors conclude that the whirlwind has passed, but it was just a taste of the true storm to come.
Meaning the next event, whatever that might be, will be the true catastrophic great reset they've been planning.
That's the explicit warning embedded in the text.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've just navigated a really deeply complex and highly assertive set of claims. It provides a kind of totalizing explanation for the global events of the last few years.
And as we've seen, the text relies very heavily on finding coded meaning. In names, like corona.
In symbols like the spike.
In physical placements, like that wall in Westminster. Even in the molecular structure of medical treatments.
Yeah, we've really explored a worldview where absolutely nothing is presented as accidental.
No, everything is deliberate, planned, executed by a centralized, hidden, and apparently ritualistic entity.
The whole argument really hinges on interpreting these symbols, the crown, the penitentiary, the spike, the wall, as conscious signals.
Signals left by the orchestrators for those in the know, or perhaps as a form of dark acknowledgement.
So the source material frames these major global events not as accidents, not as chaotic happenstance.
But as deliberate, coded rituals.
Yeah.
Carried out by powerful, hidden players.
And maybe this raises an important question for you to think about. When you're faced with just the overwhelming flood of information that defines our world today, how often do we actively search for hidden patterns, for symbolic intent, like this text does?
Versus, just accepting the surface narrative that's presented by mainstream sources.
Yeah. Finding meaning versus accepting information. That's definitely something for you to mull over.
Indeed. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into some very specific and challenging source material.
We really appreciate you sticking with us. We'll catch you next time.